there, my name is Jolene Medinsky, and I'm a dietitian here at the IWK Health Center within the Pregnancy and Diabetes Program. We're here to talk about how you can manage your gestational diabetes through diet. It's important that when you are pregnant and you have gestational diabetes that you still eat a balanced diet. We want you to eat a balanced diet from all the 4 food groups, which we're going to be going through today. We're going to be talking about which foods increase your blood sugars and how we can manage those foods to keep your blood sugars in good control. There are 3 main nutrients in food. There are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And all those nutrients provide us with energy, calories, and nutrients. But there's just one food group, one of those main nutrients, that turns into sugar in the blood, and that's called carbohydrates. So I want you to think of the word carbohydrate as a big umbrella word for sugar. So anything that turns into sugar in the blood is a carbohydrate. You can break that down further into different types of carbohydrates, okay? So you have your fiber, your sugar, and your starch. And we're gonna go through those different types of carbohydrates today. Proteins and fats do not increase your blood sugars. And we're gonna talk about those as well. So the goal is we want to focus on the healthy carbohydrates and watch our portion sizes. So which food groups have carbohydrates? Well, there actually are a lot of food groups that have carbohydrates in them. And there are lots of carbohydrates that are very good for you. One of the biggest food groups that has carbohydrates are your grains and your starches. And that's this food group over here. So your grains and your starches includes your breads, your bagels, your pita, your oats, your rice, cereal, pancakes, pasta, pizza, okay? And we call these grains and starches because they are starchy, and starch is a form of carbohydrate. Your next food group that has carbohydrates in it are your starchy vegetables. Now, most vegetables don't have a lot of carbohydrates, but the main ones are the starchy ones. And that includes these ones over here. So it's your potato, your sweet potato, your corn, your squash. These are all starchy, and they're a form of carbohydrate. Now, since your grains are starchy and these vegetables are starchy, I want you to think of this all as one group together, okay? So we call these your grains and your starches. The next food group that has carbohydrates are your fruits. And as you know, fruits are very good for you, but they do have natural sources of sugar, which can increase your blood sugars. So fresh fruit, frozen fruit, canned, dried, juice are all forms of carbohydrates. Certain dairy products contain carbohydrates. Not all dairy has carbohydrates, but the main ones are your yogurt and your milk. Yogurt and milk are still really good for you. They contain protein, calcium, vitamin D, so it's still good to get these in your diet, but you just want to watch your portion. Your last group that contains carbohydrates are the obvious one. It's your sweets, your brownies, your muffins, your ice cream, your chocolate, your cookies, your cakes. It's still okay to include these in your diet, but it's important that you really minimize how often you have them and that you just have a little bit and you watch your portion size. So I've discussed all the food groups that have carbohydrates. Now I'm going to talk about the foods that do not have carbohydrates, or if they do, it's very, very little and we really don't worry about it so much. Your non-starchy vegetables, which there are a lot. Broccoli, green beans, lettuce, cucumbers, tomatoes, leafy greens, peppers, celery. These are all essentially carbohydrate-free, full of vitamins and minerals, and very low calories. calorie, this is the food group that we really need the most of. Next is your proteins. Your proteins are your meats, chicken, beef, pork, fish, nuts, seeds, eggs, legumes, chickpeas, kidney beans, lentils, hummus, tofu, peanut butter, cottage cheese, and cheese. It's important to pair your protein with your carbohydrates because that protein can actually slow the absorption of sugar in the gut. So, if you have a slice of bread on its own, your blood sugar is going to go up like this, okay, bread. But if you pair some protein with your bread, so maybe some egg, maybe some cheese, that protein is going to help decrease your blood sugar. So maybe your blood sugar will just go up like that when you have that bread with the protein. So your last food groups that does not contain carbohydrates are your fats. So all I have here is butter and bacon, but it includes your oils, your salad dressings, your mayonnaise. All those are considered fats, and they essentially have no carbohydrate in them, so they're not going to raise your blood sugar. So what we want is we want to focus on taking your carbohydrate intake and balancing it with your non-carbohydrate food groups. And we want you to take those carbohydrates and really spread them out throughout the day between breakfast, lunch, and supper. By spreading out your carbohydrate intake like that, that will actually help your blood sugar. And when you're balancing out with the non-carb food groups, your blood sugars are not going to spike as much. So what I want to do now is I want to focus on this plate. When you look at this plate, this is kind of a snapshot of how we want all your food groups distributed on your plate. So you can draw imaginary lines. Half your plate should be your non-starchy vegetables. This is the food group we need the most of. If you looked at this quarter of your plate, up here in this corner, that's where your grain or your starch goes. So that's actually where your rice would go. Or your potato. So remember, potato is a starch. It's not at the bottom here, it's actually in the corner, okay? Or you could have your corn here, or you could even have your pasta. Okay, so it's a quarter of your plate. Then you want your protein, because again, that protein is going to help your blood sugars because you're pairing it with a carbohydrate. So your protein, for example, could be some chicken, or maybe you're mixing up some chickpeas with some noodles, okay? Or maybe you're having some rice with some fish. So it's about that quarter of your plate. When you're eating this way, you're balancing out all your food groups and you're watching your portions. Now what I'm going to do is I want to talk about this booklet. This booklet is like a meal plan. Help you balance out all your food groups and really watch your portion sizes for your carbohydrates. Page 4. Have your 3 meals a day. Each of the meals have all the food groups, and then there's suggested servings for each of the food groups. You have snacks as well, with suggested portion sizes for your snacks. Now, you do not have to follow this exactly. This just represents the most we would want you to eat in the run of the day. That what's important is that you just don't go above and beyond these suggested servings and portion sizes, because that's what will help your blood sugars. The times are also very important. We have suggested times: breakfast 7 to 8 in the morning, lunch 12 to 1, supper 5:30 to 6. You don't have to eat exactly at these times, but it's important that you try to eat around a typical meal time. Again, spreading your meals throughout the day like this can help your blood sugars. Snacks in the middle are optional. Snacks are helpful to help curb your appetite before your next meal, so you're not going in overeating. And it's also good to not go too long without eating, because sometimes that can actually cause your blood sugars to rebound up. So we say you shouldn't go longer than 4 or 5 hours without eating. So let's look at breakfast. Breakfast, you have all your different food groups, and then you have suggested servings for each of the food groups. The first one is your grains and starches, and it says 1 to 2 servings of a grain or starch. That's pretty much the same for lunch and supper. It's always 1 to 2 servings of a grain or starch. In the second column, it gives you an example of what that is. 1 to 2 slices of whole grain bread. So what it's telling you is 1 slice of bread is 1 serving, and 2 slices of bread is 2 servings. It says whole grain. Whole grain, whole wheat is better because it has more fiber. And the more fiber you have, it's kind of like the protein. It helps slow the absorption of sugar in the gut. So whole wheat or whole grain would be better on your blood sugars. But if you prefer white flour bread, the portion's still going to be the same. Now, if we go to the next page, we have a table here filled with all sorts of different grains or starches that are equal to 1 serving. So you can take any of these 1 servings and plug them in throughout the day between your breakfast, your lunch, your supper, and your snacks. And remember, you can always have up to 2 servings for a grain or starch at a meal. So let's look at some of those. In your bread section, you have bagels. So what it's telling you, it's saying if it's a small bagel, so this is a small bagel, okay? A half is 1 serving. And you can have 2 servings at a meal, so you could have a whole small bagel, because a whole small bagel would be 2 servings. If it's a large bagel, however, so this big, this thick, then a quarter is 1 serving, and a half is 2 servings. So really, if you're getting a large bagel, you should really only have half. English muffins. A half an English muffin is 1 serving, and you can have 2 servings at a meal. So you could have a whole English muffin, for example. Hamburger buns, hot dog buns. A half a hamburger bun is 1 serving, a whole hamburger bun is 2 servings, okay? Let's go to pastas and rice. For your rice, what we say, the rice portion is going to be a bit small because rice is very starchy. So 1/3 cup cooked is 1 serving, 2/3 cup cooked is 2 servings. It's best to have long grain parboiled rice rather than minute rice, because minute rice is cooked very quickly and it turns into sugar in the blood in an instant. So anything that's going to take longer to cook is probably going to be better on your blood sugars. So long grain parboiled rice would be best. Pasta. A half a cup cooked pasta is 1 serving. A whole cup cooked pasta is 2 servings. So this would be what we would recommend for pasta on your plate, about this size. You can also use your fist. You can use your fist to determine your portion for your pasta. Rice, I'd say a little bit less than your fist. But the same thing goes for your pasta. Instant noodles versus regular noodles. Instant noodles, it's cooked very quickly. It's going to turn into sugar really quickly in the blood. If you have regular noodles that you're going to boil and it's going to take 10-15 minutes to cook, it's going to be better on your blood sugars. Pizza. So for pizza, if you were to draw a line there, that's your 1 serving. Your 2 servings is just a little bit more. So I would say it's about a slice and a half is what we would recommend, okay? Now that might look small on your plate, but remember, you can fill up your plate with some of those non-starchy vegetables, like a salad or maybe some raw veggies with some salad dressing, so that you still have that nice volume on your plate, even if you've reduced the portion size of your pizza. Potato, Okay, so for potato, again, this is part of your grains and your starches, starchy vegetables. So for potato, we say a half of a medium potato is 1 serving, a whole medium potato is 2 servings. I want to talk about carbohydrate counting. So when you look at a nutrition label, you'll see on the nutrition label that there's your calories, your protein, and your fat and your carbohydrates that are all listed there. And it's good to know when you're looking at a nutrition label what that means. What does that gram of carbohydrate mean? So what we've done is assigned all these 1 servings of grains and starches to equal 15 grams of carbohydrate. Think of it as magic number 15. For all your different carbohydrate food groups, each 1 serving is magic number 15, 15 grams of carbs. So for example, 1 slice of bread is 15 grams of carbs. If you had 2 slices, say for breakfast, that would be 30. Your small bagel, half a small bagel is 15 grams of carbohydrate. If you had a whole small bagel, it would be 30. If you're having oats, a half a cup of cooked oats is 15 grams of carbohydrate. A whole cup of cooked oats is 30 grams of carbohydrate. In this table, we give you suggested servings for cereals. And I just want to give you a word of caution on cereals. Cereals are very processed. And even the cereals that are lower in sugar, we do still find that they tend to increase people's blood sugars. Even when the quantity is small, we tend to see blood sugar spikes. So you may find that eating cereal at breakfast or at other times of the day, it may cause your blood sugars to spike, and it'd be a good opportunity to explore other types of breakfast ideas. I'd like to point out the different carbohydrate targets on this sample meal plan. At breakfast, over here, it says 30 to 45 grams of carbohydrate. This is your carbohydrate target for breakfast. Lunch, 45 to 60. Supper, 45 to 60. These are suggested carbohydrate targets. For snacks, we say 15 grams of carbohydrate. At night snack, we suggest 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrate. It's important that you try to follow these carbohydrate targets, as these are recommended to help keep your blood sugars under control. If you find it is a lot, then you can discuss with us what carbohydrate target works for you. But what's most important is that you don't go above and beyond this. The snacks are optional. You don't need to have a snack in between your meals, but if you do, it's important to try to keep it at 15 grams of carbohydrate. Night snack, 15 to 30 grams of carbs. Having a night snack before you go to bed can sometimes help your blood sugars. What we suggest is a little bit of carbohydrate with a little bit of protein. Breakfast time is one of the hardest times of the day to control blood sugars. This is because as we're sleeping, right before dawn, there are hormones that are released that work against your body's insulin, which can cause high blood sugars in the morning. So having that night snack can prevent that rebound and can help those morning sugars. Your next food group at breakfast is your fruit. So what we suggest is no more than 1 serving of fruit at a time. So if you would like fruit with your breakfast, your lunch, or your supper, no more than 1 serving. Same thing for snack, 1 serving at a time. So if you go to page 6, you're going to see here a table of all sorts of different fruits that are equal to 1 serving. And remember, they're all magic number 15. So an example of that is 1 small apple is 1 serving, 15 grams of carbohydrate. A banana, a small banana, this size, is 1 serving, 15 grams of carbohydrate. Now, bananas are probably one of the starchiest fruits of all. So be very careful. Often women have a hard time having bananas at breakfast because it tends to spike their blood sugars after. So you might want to have it later on in the day. Just to remember what a portion looks like, you can use your thumb and your pinky to determine a portion size for your banana. It's almost half. For juice, we say a half a cup of juice is 1 serving. This is 15 grams of carbohydrate. Juice has a lot of sugar in it, so you're better off drinking water. Or if you would like your water to taste a little bit better, you can certainly flavor it with bits of fruits in there, maybe some lemon, maybe some orange wedges, and that will be a way to sweeten it up a little bit, but it won't affect your blood sugars. So you can have a look at this table to determine other types of fruits that you like and what a serving is. The more tropical the fruit tends to increase your blood sugar more. So apples, pears, berries, those types of fruits tend to be better on your blood sugars. You should aim for no more than 3 servings of fruit a day. So that could be a fruit as a morning snack, maybe one with your lunch, and then maybe one before you go to bed. And also pairing some of your fruit with some protein can also help your blood sugar. So for example, that could be some apple with cheese, or maybe it's apple with nuts. Some people also like to mix up cottage cheese with fruit. That's a great way to get a nice balanced snack with that added protein. Your next food group at breakfast is your dairy. So we say no more than 1 serving of milk or yogurt at a time, and that's for any time of the day, no more than 1 serving. So an example of that would be 1 cup of milk. This is what 1 cup of milk looks like, and again, that's magic number 15 grams of carbohydrate. Now, if you don't like milk, you don't have to drink it. You can also get your dairy sources from other products. You can have some yogurt. So we say 3/4 of a cup of yogurt is a serving, and it's about 15 grams of carbohydrate. And remember, your yogurt and your milk have protein, and that protein is really important, and you have calcium and vitamin D. I also want to discuss chocolate milk. Chocolate milk has a lot of sugar, and 15 grams of carbohydrate for chocolate milk is actually only a half a cup. So if you're having chocolate milk, we would say no more than half a cup, which is 15 grams of carbohydrate. Your next food group at breakfast is your proteins. So we do recommend protein with all your meals. And at breakfast, it says 2 eggs or maybe 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. So remember, protein does not have carbohydrates. It does not increase your blood sugar. It's still good to provide a recommendation on a portion size because we do want to ensure that you are eating an appropriate amount of calories and that you're gaining a healthy weight throughout your pregnancy. Gaining too much weight in pregnancy can actually cause insulin resistance, which means that you might have a harder time controlling your blood sugars. So that's why we have suggested portion sizes. So a couple of eggs is fine. If it's lunchtime and you want some chicken, again, you can focus on that 1/4 of your plate. So about that. Chicken breast, you can also compare it to the size of a deck of cards. If you like fish, I know this looks a little bit bigger, but if you use your hand and you put it like this, that's about a portion of fish. Don't forget things like canned tuna, canned salmon. Those are really easy proteins that you can add to your meal. Fish is safe in pregnancy as long as you're not having it more than a couple of times a week. So take advantage of some of those easy proteins that you can have if you're not in the mood to cook a big meal. Other opportunities for protein in your diet are nuts. Nuts, I say a portion is about what you can fit in the palm of your hand. There are quite a bit of calories and fat in nuts and seeds, but as long as you're sticking to about that much, then that's good. For cheese, a couple of blocks of cheese with some crackers as a snack, or maybe in your sandwich or with your fruit is very reasonable, great source of protein. Also tofu, don't forget about tofu. You can add those to your stir fries, you can add it to your soups, and again, about that 1/4 of your plate. With your proteins, we also have legumes like chickpeas, kidney beans, lentils, hummus. These are great sources of protein, great alternatives to meat. and very easy to use, especially if it's in a can. You can just rinse it and add it to your rice, your noodles, your soups. Just be careful though. Legumes are a little starchy. They have a little bit of carbohydrate, but as long as you're watching your portion size, so about that quarter of your plate, it should be okay. So let's talk about these non-starchy vegetables we have here in your meal plan. So non-starchy vegetables are on page 9, and there's a table here filled with all these vegetables that essentially contain very little carbohydrate, if any. It's your cauliflower, your lettuce, your celery, your cucumbers, your tomatoes, your broccoli. These are all very good for you, low calorie, full of vitamins and minerals, and you can essentially eat as much as you want and they're not going to affect your blood sugar. So remember to really fill up your plate with lots of those non-starchy vegetables so that you get that nice volume of food on your plate when you're reducing your carbohydrate intake. So I've gone through what a day looks like following this meal plan. I just want you to remember that when you're looking at these different meals, you don't have to have all of the food groups at a meal. This might be a lot of food for you. The main point is to just have a good balance. Try to have 3 of the 4 food groups. Always try to have a bit of carbohydrate and a bit of protein. What I mean by that, if you look at breakfast, what I tell people is start with your protein and build around your protein. So for example, what's a protein people like to have at breakfast? Well, a lot of people like to have eggs, scrambled eggs, a boiled egg. Then you build around that protein. What's the carbohydrate you're gonna have? Maybe you're gonna have a slice of toast with some butter. Whole wheat would be better, for example. And to have a third food group, maybe you'll have a glass of milk. That is a nice balanced meal. You're still following your portion guidelines for your carbohydrates. That's 15 grams of carbohydrate. This is 15, so that's 30 grams of carbohydrate. And then you have your protein. Your carbohydrate target at breakfast is between 30 and 45, so that meets that target.
There are many ways to make your food taste good. Try different herbs like basil, oregano, dill, chili powder. All of these flavorings add to the taste and enjoyment of your meals and snacks. Try some lemon and lime juice in your recipes. Spices like ginger, garlic, cinnamon, and cocoa powder are going to add great flavor to your food. Sugars and sweeteners. A variety of sweeteners or sugar substitutes can be safely taken in small amounts during pregnancy. Some examples are a packet of sugar substitute added to your tea or coffee, a diet soft drink or yogurt. Sugar in the diet is found in many foods such as condiments, cereals, convenience meals, and snacks. It is best to limit sugar in your diet. White and brown sugar, honey, and agave all affect your blood sugars. There are many ways you can reduce sugar in your diet. Ask your dietitian to help you with some sweet swaps.